there, welcome to my channel. My name is Linda. I have a couple of fun crafts for you today. So what are we waiting for? Let's get started. Today we'll be working on Fall Rustic Farmhouse Home Decor crafts, so let's get started with project number 1. It amazes me how many descriptive words I can get in that title. For this project, I chose some fabrics I thought coordinated good together, and I actually chose enough for 2 acorns. I'm only going to do one on camera because they both are similar in everything that we do. So the top 3 were my pieces I'm going to work with, and then these 2 with the same green for the leaf is going to be my other acorn, and I thought they all just went together really nicely. Okay, so you can pick whatever fabrics you want, of course. I will have a free pattern for you, link in my description box. This is the bottom half of the acorn. And in the top half, I give you instructions. You're just going to draw it out yourself, but it is 3.5 tall by 21 inches long. And then I gave you 2 leaves to choose from. You can use one or both or whatever. So the bottom half of the acorn, I'm going to cut 3 out of my main fabric here. I like how both of these came out, and I will give you some different options to kind of do the top half of the acorn if you want a little bit different. And of course, as usual, I have sewing and gluing options, okay? So I'm just kind of cutting out my last one. This is a placemat I picked up at Hobby Lobby. I really love the texture on it. Here's my thing, 3.5 by 21 inches. This is on upholstery fabric. I think I got it at a garage sale. It kind of has nice lines through it, so I can see this. I ticked this off because I can see the line that I'm cutting down and then where I'm going up. So didn't really need the pattern, but again, 3.5 tall by 21 inches long. And again, that'll be on the acorn part of the instructions. Now the stem instructions also will be written on that acorn part, okay? And it is going to be 2.5 inches long and 5 inches tall. I do give you an alternate stem of a 5 by 5 if you want to just roll it, and I'll show you that in a little bit. All right, now I'm going to cut out 2 fabric for leaves, and I want 2 pieces of batting in between. So I just had the scrap piece of batting. I just laid it under my fabric. You do not have to use batting if you don't want to use it. I just want it to look real quilted and puffy, and you can use 1 or 2 pieces of batting if you want. But whatever leaf you want, 2 pieces of fabric, and then however much batting you want. Okay, let's go to work. You're going to take 2 of your 3 pieces of your acorn. Now this is the wrong side. This is the right side, or I call it the pretty side. You're going to take those 2 pieces and put your pretty sides together, matching your points. All right, on this first piece, you're going to come down, see where that point is. I'm going to put a pencil here so you can see the point. You're going to glue or sew down to about a 1/4 inch before that point. You want to leave that little bit of space there. So you're going to glue right between the fabrics near the edge to the about a 1/4 inch before that point, or you're going to sew down that, okay? I'm going to pin it and just sew it off camera. And then, of course, I'm going to show you in this next clip what it looks like sewn all the way down to a 1/4 inch before that point. All right, now we want to add the third piece. You're going to match the corner of that into the corner of the first 2 pieces we put together, right? Okay, match it up. And then if you're a gluer, now this time you can glue between the 2 fabrics all the way down to that point. And if you're a sewer, of course, you can sew on the outer edge all the way down to that point. Now I left the point open on the first one so that when you put this third piece in, you can bring all the points together and it'll be closed if that's understandable. And of course, this is what this looks like. Now here's the part where I would normally say you're going to take these 2 pieces, you're going to put them together. Gluers, you're going to glue between, just like we've been doing. Sewers, sew between or on top. But hold off on that because I want to add a little patch here. So I just cut a little piece of like sweater material and a piece of batting. I'm going to put it about 1 inch away or so from that edge that you would glue or sew. And if you're a gluer, glue it down, or you can hand stitch it down, make it look cute. Or of course, if you're a sewer, sew it down, and then you can glue or sew your opening closed. Now, honestly, if you're a gluer, you could add the patch later because you're gluing. Unless you're doing hand stitches, you do want to do this before you close it so that you can get to the patch easier, if that's understandable. And of course, I had you add the patch about 1 inch away from the edge so you have plenty of room to glue or sew it together. Now on my patch here, as you see, I am sewing it very whimsical. I'm not making anything straight because I want it to be cute and fun. And then of course I'm sewing that side closed, and once it's done I'm checking to make sure my bottom's all closed up, and then I'm just going to turn this whole piece right side out, and then we're going to go to work on the upper portion of our acorn. All right, you're going to take that long rectangular piece, fold it in half, pretty sides together, and I gave you about an extra inch of fabric, ½ inch of fabric. All right, so about a ½ inch in on the cut edge. If you're a gluer, I maybe mark it and then you glue about a ½ inch in. If you're a sewer, you're going to sew a ½ inch in. Make sure you go in gluing or sewing a ½ inch in. You can cut off the extra. All right, and then take the seam of that piece and you're going to put pretty sides together and match that. I matched it with the seam on the back of the acorn and then pin it. All right, and you want the straight edge of that rectangular piece to match the straight edge of your acorn. Again, pretty sides together. So it's going to look like that rectangular piece is hanging, you know, and covering up half of your acorn basically. So pin it all the way around. And then if you're a gluer, I would like leave the pins in, glue it at the edge, take a pin out, glue it a little bit more, take a pin out, glue it a little bit more, just so you make sure that all your edges stay together. And of course, if you're a sewer, you can just take it to your sewing machine, and I did about a ½ inch seam allowance, and then I just sew it all the way around, if that's understandable. Right? And then flip it right side out. Now, if you don't like this sewn edge here, it's all pretty and sewn. If you don't like this, I'm going to give you a little bit more of an easy rustic option. So here's our piece cut 3x21. You're going to do the exact thing as before, pretty sides together, sew or glue a ½ inch in, flip it right side out. But this time you're going to take it and just slide it over so that the bottom edge of that brown piece, I'm going to go by color, lays about a ½ inch from the top of the white piece. Thought that'd be easy to explain it. About a ½ inch over the top of the white piece, and then you can just sew along that edge or glue right up underneath it, and it gives you a little bit of a rustic look. All right, now let's move on to our leaves. I've got my leaves together. If you're going to add batting or not add batting and you're a gluer, glue your leaves together. You can do hand stitches to make the veins in the leaves. In the middle, you can hand stitch around the outside edge, however you want it. Of course, as a sewer, I'm going to just sew around the outside edge and then make the veins on the inside. Again, you do not have to use batting if you don't want to. And again, I'm doing it for kind of that quilted country look. And also the material I'm using is a little bit kind of thin and flimsy. So if you don't want to use batting, might I suggest kind of a little bit thicker material so it just is a little more substantial to it and lays more like a leaf instead of a floppy dying leaf. Here's what it looks like so far around the edges, down the middle, and then I'm just going to go right from one end to the middle, kind of turn my leaf a little bit and onto the other edge, and to make the little veins. And of course I'll do it on both leaves. Here's what that looks like, just to give it a little character. All right, and then here's the fabric for our stem, 2.5 by 5. I'm going to fold it so it's pretty sides together. And if you're a gluer, you're going to glue one long side, one short side together, leaving that top end open, or sew, same thing. Sew one long side, one short side. Now I'm just cutting off the extra here because I didn't sew it straight. And then you're just going to flip it right side out. Now, and then I'm just using a little skewer here to kind of pop those corners out. Now, if you don't want to do this, there's other options, of course. You could use like a stick, or you could use, like on my pattern, I tell you to cut out a 5 by 5 piece of fabric and you just roll it and you can glue that end together and have a rolled stem. It's super cute. If you go this route, now you want to go ahead and stuff it. Now, I gave you a pattern for a nice kind of long stem so that you can get at least a couple inches down inside the acorn. All right, now we want to close the top of our acorn. It's like doing the pumpkin. We want our crochet thread, a long needle. You're going to knot one end of your thread, and you're going to go from like inside of the acorn to the outside, pull your thread all the way through till you reach the end of your knot, and then you're going to come back through from the back side to the front, pull your needle through, and then you're just going to pleat your fabric on and off your needle however many times you want, and then you're going to pull your needle all the way through, stretching it out till you reach the end of your thread. And then I do it a couple times here. I'm going to skip just a little bit more forward, doing it again here, pulling it, and you can see my nice long row of stitches here. You're going to do that all the way around till you come back right close to that knot. Here I am back around. We've done this so many times. I know we have beginners, but I think I explained it well enough. See how I'm right close to my knot there? All right, and then I'm just going to kind of pull both threads out a little bit, and that's going to gather the top of our acorn to close it. All right, and then I'm going to stuff it. Now, if you need a little bit more instruction on doing that, there will be a link on my blog to Basic Sewing Stitches, shows you how to kind of do that gather stitch. All right, now you're going to start pulling those stitches to close your opening, and I'm going to close it so I have just enough room for that acorn stem. I'm going to cut my string off here so I can tie it together in a knot, keeping that opening small enough for my stem. I'll do a couple, 2 or 3 knots, and then I'll cut off the excess. I like to leave long tails so it doesn't come out, and just stuff them inside. All right, and I'm making a hole in the cotton. So you can see I got about 2 inches of stem here, and I'm going to push it right down into the hole into that cotton. And I'm going to make my stem a little bit crooked because I think it's fun. You can see how it's just a little bit slanty there. And then I'm going to use some covered wire. This is from Hobby Lobby. I'm going to just kind of tie it around the bottom. And then just kind of have it real, you know, like curly Q off both sides. Twist it, curly Q it like that. However you want to decorate. And then I went back and forth whether I wanted to cover the top a little bit. But I thought, okay, a tiny little bit of moss. And then I've just got some beaded berries here, some pip berries, as little jewels to it or something. I just twisted it like 4 or so together, glued it up under the moss, and then glued one leaf at the top of that. And I want my other leaf to kind of come down a little bit hanging. So I have this. It's just like a piece off of like a flower. You know, you can get flowers at Hobby Lobby or whatever. It's just a piece of the wired stem that I curly cued. I'm going to get it right up under that moss, one end, kind of tuck it down into that cotton there. And then I'm going to glue the leaf to the top of kind of a flat part on that curly cue. Probably better to watch. Before I glue that down, I have some burlap mesh tubing from Dollar Tree, just tied a knot in it, and I'm going to tuck it up under that first leaf, and then we'll go ahead and glue down our second leaf. Add a little glue at the top, a little glue on the acorn with our curly branch, so to speak, and then I can push both of them down together, glued, so it looks like a cute curly branch coming out from the side underneath the leaf and out to the side, out to the right there. Now I've taken a bell and put some twine through it, tied a knot on the back, and now I have a large diameter twine tied into a bow and a big button. I apologize, I'm off camera. I glued the bow to the button, and then I'm taking that bell on the twine and feeding it around that bow through the holes of the button and tying it in a knot on the back. So it's like all, you know, one nice ensemble, and then I'll glue it to the top of that first leaf there. And then I wanted to use one more bell, so that wire that's off to the side of the leaf, I'm kind of flattening it with my pliers here, and then I'll kind of feed the bell on the end. Bring that wire forward a little bit, and then I'll just kind of glue it into place and push it together, and then I've got the cute little bell on the side there. All right, now I'm going to take some Distress Oxide ink and walnut stain and my little inker, and I'm just going to, a little light inking. I don't want my acorn to look dirty, but I'm just trying to kind of shadow some areas so it has a little depth to it. You know, the top of the white here, around the patch, a little bit on the leaves. And before we finish, I'll bring up the other acorn I made off camera. Now, again, matches, see? And this fabric on the patch, I used this fabric so that it goes together, and these match nicely. And I did basically the same thing, just used a little bit different materials. I only did one leaf on this one. I added the moss, I added the button, I added the twine bow, the paper covered wire. This is like from a Christmas pick here, and then this is wire that I curly queued up. You get from Dollar Tree as the wire and the rope around it. Same things, just a little bit different look, but goes together. That makes this project complete. We'll take a look at the results at the end of the video. Let's move on to project number 2. Now this project I am taking a little slower. Sorry for the longer video, but hopefully it's worth it. You're going to need some chenille chunky yarn. It doesn't work with regular yarn. I have like a skein and a half left because I am actually making a bigger pumpkin, although I'm going to show you how to do this in a smaller size pumpkin, but I'll show you the bigger and the smaller pumpkin at the end because I end up making both. So chunky chenille yarn, we are hand knitting a pumpkin, and you're going to start with about 12 inches of yarn that hangs off, and the yarn that we're going to make loops with I'm going to call the working yarn. All right, I'm going to take the working yarn and fold it over that straight piece. Each loop that we will make for the pumpkin, I gauged the length of about 2 fingers. Okay, so each loop should be about 2 fingers big. We're going to pull that working yarn through that first I'm going to call it a loop, but it's not a real loop. And then we're going to pull that straight part tight so that it creates a little knot and leaves you our actual first loop 2 fingers wide. All right, now I'm going to pull that working yarn from behind that first loop up through it, measuring it with 2 fingers. All right, I like to clip that first one with some kind of clip or a safety pin, a paper clip, something, so you don't lose that first loop. And then we're going to continue pulling the working yarn through each loop we make, and as we pull it up, 2 fingers. All right, so now we have 4 loops. Pull it up through there, 5 loops. Pull it from the back to the front, 6 loops. This is our chain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're on 6. All right, pull it through 7. We have to make a chain first. Pull it through 8. Pull it through 9. Pull it through 10. Pull it through 11. Pull it through 12. Pull it through 13, and pull it through 14. All right, we have 14 chains. This is our working chain. Now we want to take our 14th loop, and you can count it like this, counting those little humps to make sure, and the one I'm hanging on to, that you have 14 loops. We're going to take that 14th loop, and we're going to form a circle and put it through the first loop, the one that I've got marked. You're going to pull it through, and then I like to take that clip and mark that first loop again. All right, you still have that long piece. This gets cumbersome right at first. You can put it through the center, or I just pull it down through the bottom and let it hang down there because it kind of gets in the way. Now we're going to make that working yarn come through the chains that we made, and we're going to make our 2 finger loop. There's 2 loops. Come through the chain right there. See that? All right, it'll get easier once we make all these first loops. This first part's a little bit difficult, but once we make our loops, it gets easier to find our loops to make the next row of loops. So you're pulling it through each chain we made. Now you should end up with 14 loops because we made 14 chains, okay? From the back to the front, pulling it through the chain, all right? Kind of the loop on the outer edge of that chain. If you understand, you're going to go through it, through the outer edge of that chain, pulling it through the loop. All right, pull through from the back to the front on the outer edge of the chain. Now I've run out of this here. That's okay. I'm going to grab some more yarn and just tie a little knot. We will not see this because our yarn is so fluffy. We're going to hide it in there. So that's how you connect the yarn if you need to add more yarn. All right, counting, we're at 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So now we're on number 10 loop, pulling it from the back to the front. We're on 11 loop, 12 loop, that's going to get pulled through that knot, 13 loop, back to the front, 14 loops. So we have 14 loops, we had 14 chains. Now from here on out, all the loops, we're always going to want to do 14 loops, starting with this first one. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Perfect. All right. And now we'll just do loops through these loops. It's going to get so much easier. The hardest part is doing these first set of loops in the chain. And I like to mark it down. I was on 2. The chain in the first row is 2. Now I'm on row 3. So I'm going to go from that first marked loop, pull it through, and make a loop. Number 2. Number 3 with my working yarn. So much easier now, isn't it? Going from the back to the front. Number 4. Had some stuff on there. Number 5. Number 6. From the back to the front. Number 7. Number 8. Back to the front. Number 9. You'll start to gauge the kind of the length of your 2 finger loop. After a while, it gets a little easier. You don't always have to, measure with 2 fingers. You'll start to eyeball it. Okay. All right, and then we're going to come into this marked loop. I'm going to put it through and then re-clip the new loop. All right, now we're on row 4. We're going to take this row just slow one more time, and then we'll start to speed it up a little bit. So again, with our working yarn, we're going from the back to the front, making a loop. Hopefully this is getting easier. I'll probably say that again throughout. Hopefully this is getting easier. We're almost there. Back to the front, make a loop, back to the front, make a loop, back to the front, make a loop, right? One more here. Then we're going to go in our very first row of loops, mark it. And now we're going on row 5, but before we do that, I'm actually going to take this and fold it in half. For some reason, it just helps all our rows that are going upward to flatten out. I don't know why it does it that way, but it works nicely. And then we're just going to keep continuing going from the back to the front with our working yarn, and we're making loops inside the previous loop. When you get to the side, you flip it just like that, from the back to the front, back to the front, making another loop, back to the front, making a loop. After a while, you'll kind of get used to, 2-finger size looking loop. You can eyeball it. You don't always have to measure it with 2 fingers. Flipping it over, we're going to go from the back to the front, so that makes it nicer. And then we're going to come to that original first that I've got marked and make sure I remark it. Now, before I go into row 6, I want to go over it with you again. We chained 14 to start, and we're going 10 rows of loops up, okay? All right, so here I am on row 6. I'm going a little faster here because hopefully we have it now. We're going from the back of our loop with our working yarn to the front and making another loop. And as we come to the side of our pumpkin, we're flipping it over to get to the other side. Back to the front, make a loop. Back to the front, make a loop, and flip. Back to the front, make a loop, and every time we come to that beginning one, we'll just remark it with our clip that popped off. Now, I like to mark it because it helps me to know I've done 14 loops. You don't have to mark it if you don't want, but that helps my visual. Okay, and again, we're doing the same thing with our working yarn. Back to the front, making a loop. Back to the front, making a loop. All right, now my bigger pumpkin, I did bigger, and I'll show you that, and I will have the measurements, the chain, and how many rows I did for each size pumpkin. All right, again, this one I'm going to do 10 rows. I'm on row number 10 now. Kind of went ahead for you. You can see how it's looking. See how much straighter the rows get by folding it in half? So we're doing our last row of loops here. All right, I think it took me maybe 15-20 minutes to do this pumpkin. All right, and then we're going to show you how to kind of close our top and bottom. All right, one more through here. All right, mark it. Now the bottom, kind of put it upright like this, and we're going to take that long piece we've been messing with, and we're going to run it through the loops of that first chain we made, just kind of the top little part of that chain. Probably easier to look than what I'm saying. You're going to run it through each chain, and as you do, kind of pull it closed. All right, you're going to go clear around that entire row of 14 chains that we did, remember? And you probably will have to come back through again because I'm not quite closed yet. So I'm going to go back through again. Doesn't matter. This is all on the inside. Go back through those loops again and keep pulling that straight piece tight until you get it tight enough so it's closed like that. Okay, and then I'm going to run it through the next chain one more time, leaving a little loop, and pull that cut end through the loop to make a knot, just like that. Now you have a piece hanging. You can cut it off or you can weave it through other little chains along that pumpkin, if that makes sense. All right, and then flip it. This is the inside because you got that piece hanging. Flip it so it's right side out. All right, now we're going to kind of do the same thing. Now, on my larger pumpkin, I should have left a really long piece like this, but I didn't think about it because I wanted to use the long piece to make our sections, but I didn't, so I cut it off. So I'm going to do the same with this, leaving about 12 inches. All right, leave this. You want probably a couple of yards of yarn. Hold on to that. Take this little 12-inch piece, and you're going to run it through those loops. Just like we did the bottom, we ran it through the initial chain. Now we're dealing with loops on the top, right? So we're going to run it through loops. Those loops sitting out on the top and pulling it tight to close our pumpkin, and keep running it through the loops and pulling it tight. But running it through, pulling it tight. Leave a little opening here for a minute before you get it all the way closed and stuff it. I'm going to run that end piece through that first initial loop we kept marking, and I'm going to pin it there so it stays, and I'm going to stuff it as far as I want it. Now this knotted piece that's hanging out, shove it through a hole into the inside. You don't even see it. Look at that. We hit it. Now once you get it stuffed, you're going to pull that cut piece again, tight enough but leaving room for your stem like we always do for our pumpkins and like we did for the acorn. Okay, just like that. leaving that hole there. Now I'm going to move to my bigger pumpkin because this is where I left off. Here's my small pumpkin. We're now moving to the bigger pumpkin because that's what I'm going to decorate. And here it is. Look how much bigger it is. So our smaller pumpkin was 14 chains, 10 rows up. This is 20 chains, 17 rows up. And I will have that in the description box. All right. I love how it turned out. My weave, my chains are actually a little bit looser, but that's okay. All right, and then of course here I am at the cut piece, and I'm going to make sections in the pumpkin next. So since I cut that off, I'll add more yarn to it in a minute with this longer piece by tying a knot, just like we did earlier. I want to skip ahead here for a minute because I took a spindle and I cut it to the length I wanted to make a really tall stem. And then I am sanding that to make it lighter. And I cut to this right now really quick because I still haven't made my hole at the top of my pumpkin the size I need to fit my stem. So I cut to this because the next seam we're going to kind of work our hole there to fit our stem. This is what it looks like. See, it's a little bit big. So now I'm pulling it tighter to make that stem hole, just like we did on the small one. And then I'll pull it through the top of the pumpkin and make a little knot here. All right. Once that's tied in a knot, now we want to start on our sections of our pumpkin. So we're going to take that extra yarn, probably a couple feet of it. We're going to tie it in a knot, just like we did the first pumpkin, and pull on the yarn and make sure it's nice and tight. If you didn't cut yours and you left it really long, you're perfect. You don't have to do that part. Wrap it around the pumpkin. Now that knot there, I'm just going to run it through one of the chains on our pumpkin, and then pull that yarn all the way through, and it'll hide that knot on the inside. You're going to kind of go in one chain and back out, all right? And then pull it all the way through. Now I'm going to, at the top, I'm going to come through the center and out the side where I want to wrap it back around the pumpkin again to make another section. I'm just going to right close to the top. I'm going to find a hole and come through it and wrap it around again. I like to go under the previous yarn on the bottom because that first yarn's always nice and tight. Wrap it up around the pumpkin, in through the center, and then back out through a hole somewhere where I want to make another section and wrap around again. I'm doing this way because I don't want my yarn to come across the center. I want to leave that open. So come back around. Again, I'm going to come under both yarns that are already there because that's nice and tight. Keeping my yarn pulled tight to make those sections. Okay, so up and around again. I've got 6 sections is what I'm going to end up with. Coming back to the top, and I'm going to pull it through the center again like we've been doing. And I'm going to find a hole in there somewhere on the side, pull it through, and then kind of come back, see where my finger is, back around again to sort of make a loop and pull that end through the loop and knot it off. And then I'm going to go back through like that same spot again. Doesn't matter if you go through the center or the side. Here I went through the side and up through the center and then pulled it up through that loop, cut off the excess, and then just tuck that in. Now we have our pumpkin, and I don't know if I said this, but I was making sure I wasn't putting yarn through the middle so that we can glue our stem in. So I'm going to get that stem glued in, and then we're going to use some Dollar Tree supplies. We're going to use this eucalyptus leaves from Dollar Tree for decoration. These silver dollars, is that what they're called? Silver dollar leaves. These velvet pumpkins. Some raffia. I've just took a bunch and tied in a little single knot there. And then a couple flowers here. I end up using the orange one. I think it went better with the color scheme I was using. And then this is just like a floral bush I got at Hobby Lobby. I love the curlicues on it, so I'm just cutting those off. This is ribbon from Dollar Tree, I believe. Tied it into a bow. And then this is beautiful ribbon from Hobby Lobby. I love this beautiful velvet orangey ribbon. Again, already kind of pre-tied it into a bow. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and glue my leaves in. And I apologize for the arm in the way. I was changing views so that you would have better view, and then all you got was arm. Anywho, glued my orange leaves to the back, and then I'm going to kind of glue those lighter leaves to the front a little bit. And then I'm adding in the curlicue here. I know that looks funny, but it adds great motion to it. And then I'm gluing in the whole stem of pumpkins at the same time in the front. And then I'm gluing the raffia in, just kind of tucking it down in that hole. And then I'll glue the first bow on. and the second bow on, and then the flower, and then I'm going to show you the smaller pumpkin. Now, while I like this all decorated up, I almost think the smaller pumpkin's my favorite because you really see a lot more of the hand knit pumpkin that we did. But I love this one as well, right? This one's done. So here's our other pumpkin upside down because I don't want you to see the top yet. And I know that looks funny, but you can see how much tighter the sections are and everything. And I think because it is a little bit smaller pumpkin. But anyway, I want to show you what I did for the stem. Now this is shorter than what I started out with, but I had a scrap piece of yarn and I cut it into 5 pieces and then used another piece of yarn to kind of tie them all at one end, just made a knot. And then I braided the 5 pieces. It'd probably be better with 6, but again, I was just using a scrap piece of yarn. Once my braid was done, I took another scrap piece of yarn, and this time I wrapped it around it and glued it because I thought, you might be able to see that, and I wanted it to look a little nicer than trying to hide a knot. So I got that done, and then I took about an 18 gauge wire and I put it all the way through the braided stem. At the pretty end of the stem, I did a little loop at the top, and then I'll pull it through so it's still at the top, but the yarn hanging out covers it. And on the end that's going to go into the pumpkin, I cut it off, but leave a little out with a bigger loop, so I have that loop and the yarn to kind of get down and glue into the center of the pumpkin. Of course, I used this pretty velvet ribbon from Hobby Lobby and a velvet pumpkin from Dollar Tree, and this is what it looks like. Isn't it beautiful? So while I love all the stuff on the other pumpkin, I think I like this more because you can just see it better. It's smaller, so you can make the sections tighter. My stem is actually, it's about 6 inches exposed and about 2 inches underneath, so it's about 8 inches long to start out with. And lastly, let's take a look in size comparison. Little one on the left, look at the gigantic one on the right. But both are beautiful, but it's interesting with just a few extra starting chains and a few extra rows add to the size of the pumpkin, and that makes this project complete. So I hope you liked all of the projects I made today. Please leave me a comment down below and let me know which project was your favorite. Please give this video a thumbs up. And if you walked in here for the first time, you're just checking things out, you're digging what you saw, make sure before you click off, you hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss out on another project from me. Now, last video, I believe I talked about that hype button, and thank you for those of you that pushed it. If you don't know what the hype button is, it just kind of is for smaller channels, newer channels type thing. If you hit the hype button within a week of that video initially coming out and it gets, like lots of points or this or that, YouTube somehow kind of just pushes your channel to the forefront and gets a little bit more views for you. And just thank you again so much for those of you who are pushing that button for me. That hype button is kind of located down with the little buttons, in my byline thing there, if you want to save the video or share the video, that kind of thing, if you're able to view it. I can't view it from my iPad, which is really weird. But anyway, thank you again to those who are pushing that button for me. I truly appreciate it. It really does help my channel to grow. Now here's the bad news. You might want to sit down for this. This video is the last of our fall seasonal crafting for 2025. I know! It's been a great season, I think. Hopefully they were inspirational fall crafts for you. Doesn't mean you have to stop crafting fall, but I am going to stop crafting fall and move into Christmas. My next video out will be my mega Christmas video with a few of my favorite projects from last year. Hopefully I can go right into new Christmas crafts after that. I may have to throw in a thrifting video because I do have jury duty this month. We'll see how it goes, but we are heading into the Christmas crafting season. So with that said, I'm going to leave you with one final thought. Plan your future with your faith in God, not with worry or fear. Have confidence in God's ability to lead you and guide you in all things that He desires for your life. To have confidence means having a deep, unwavering trust in God's character, His power, and His promises. This confidence, this unwavering trust means to have a belief that God is compassionate and loving. It means knowing that God is your true source of courage and stability, and that He will always make good on His promises in your life. Having confidence in God's overall power means relying on His strength rather than your own abilities. Throughout life's circumstances, when you look for and hope in God, you will always have His strength to uplift you and sustain you whenever you feel weak. His power will allow you to run your race without growing weary. His power will allow you to walk through your life without giving up. And His power will allow you to lift up your wings and rise up close to Him like eagles rising toward the sun. The book of Isaiah, chapter 40, verse 31. The same power that raised Christ from the dead, this power that is far above all rule and authority, this power that is infinite, without limit, never falling short of accomplishing what God has designed for it to do, this immeasurable great power of God dwells in you. It is endlessly abundant, giving your faith the strength to be carried as a shield when you come face to face with the enemy. And no matter what the enemy is trying to throw down in your path, be prepared. Be grounded and stand firm with the power of your faith in God. You have the assurance of being God's child, and regardless of how terrifying the circumstance may be, remember to have confidence in your position with God. Have confidence that He will do all things necessary to cause things to work together for good to those who love Him and are called according to His plan and purpose. The book of Romans, chapter 8, verse 28. Stand upright in the blessed assurance of God's love for you. Live boldly and plan your future with your faith in God as your shield. Remember that the shield, soaked in the divine power of God, works in you, and it will carry God's omnipotent authority to protect you and extinguish any flaming arrows of fear and worry that the enemy may try to hurl at you. Throughout everything you face, trust in God's mighty strength, and trust that anything He has designed for you will be accomplished and nothing will ever fall short. So plant your feet in the truth of His word. Take action, lift up your shield of faith, and carry it on the promises that God has given you in your life. I thank you for sharing your time with me, and I'll talk with you again soon. Bye.